What up, Internet? Lanny Pator back again, and one of the most requested things that I got in my last video, Jesus, is budgeting. The answer is budgeting. I'll clean that up later. Yeah, I don't find that hard to believe at all, considering we live in a period where the American college student loan debt is in the trillions. And I think I read a statistic somewhere that not even 40% of people out there have even $1,000 saved away in case of an emergency. And while I would normally find that hard to believe, I was once one of those people. Because like a lot of people, I take budgeting for granted. I think, oh, of course, it's common sense. You get the money that you make and just don't spend all of it. Sure, that's the principle. But if you're not really examining where that money's going, it can find a way to get lost on you pretty quickly. You get your paycheck, you start paying off your rent, you start paying for things, you start going out to meals, and you're like, oh good, you know what, I have everything covered. So you start doing a little bit more for yourself, maybe seeing a few extra movies, maybe you save up for a nice vacation and you go take that. But then something happens, and all of a sudden, where's your money? Shit. That's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of lifestyle that I lived for a good long while after I started to actually bring in income. I would essentially be living paycheck to paycheck just because I had habits that I couldn't curb. And then when I started to make more money, those habits just got more expensive. It wasn't until a few years ago when Erica and I were hit by basically one emergency after another. Car repairs, medical expenses, you name it, I think we had to deal with it. That I realized, shit, I am not putting enough of this money that I'm making away to really make a difference against this stuff. And that's when I decided I needed to start actually budgeting what I'm doing. And all things considered, budgeting isn't exactly the most tedious process in the world. Sure, it takes a little bit of effort to sit down and come up with all the figures, and those figures will adjust over time, but at the end of the day, it's going to help so much in terms of your own financial literacy, just as it did mine. With all that said, I understand why it can be a little difficult to figure out exactly, what are you budgeting? Where do you put what? Like what expenses take priority? And the answer is gonna be a little different for everybody, but the way I've kind of figured things out in my life is I have basically 3 tiers of expense, and they kind of go through basically Maslow's hierarchy at the top, down to entertainment near the bottom. For example, the top tier of, the type of expenses that I'd budget against would be food and utilities first. Basically, you want to make sure that you have food and water. Very important, not exactly gonna be living if you're not able to nourish yourself. Duh. Next up would be shelter, keeping a roof over your head, staying out of the elements. Good. Definite good. But just slightly below that is where I feel like I sort of deviate from, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Just below that, I put debts. Make sure you are making your minimum debt payments. Because if you're not keeping up on your debts and you're not making sure that those payments are going in on time, all of a sudden that interest rate is going to start piling up, and then it starts getting bigger and bigger until you just can't, oh my God! So yeah, keeping on top of your debts is a pretty strong priority, which is why I'd normally put it in the upper tier. Then beyond that, you have expenses such as insurance, which will, hopefully mitigate any health costs that might come your way, and keeping your car insured, your home insured, just protecting your assets. And then just below that is clothing, which could arguably go into tier 2, but making sure that you have clothes is nice for being able to go out into public. Like this gray shirt? My mommy bought it for me. Love you, Mom. Next up, we have tier 2 expenses, things that essentially you could live without, but with society the way it is are kind of difficult to. For example, the first thing on the tier 2 list would probably be your cell phone plan or phone bill. Yes, in a society as connected as we are, it is very difficult to live without something that's keeping you connected to the rest of the human hive mind. but it is not something that you will die without. Same too goes for cable and internet, which I know is a bit more subjective, especially coming from me who makes his living on the internet. But at the end of the day, that's not the same for everybody, and if you're using a plan that's, say, maybe faster than what you need, you could probably downgrade it and save some money there. And this is especially true for cable, which I also put on this tier just because a lot of people will bundle cable and internet packages alongside each other. I cut that cable cord years ago. Like, as far back as when Erica and I moved in together, back in, I think, 2011, we didn't have cable. And since then, we haven't really needed it. Got most of my entertainment off the internet for a lot cheaper than a cable package. And the last thing I have on the tier 2 list is gas/travel. Now this is another subjective one because I know a lot of people out there will say things like, but I have to, drive into work, I have to get to work somehow. And that's true, but this is also a place where you could save a lot easier without endangering your livelihood while still being able to travel where you need to get to. For example, I have a car, but I live close enough to where I work at Team 4-Star that I could walk or bike there if I wanted to. And on many occasions I do. All I have to do is allot the amount of time that I need to get there. Granted, budgeting time is also something that I am admittedly terrible at, but I think we'll get to that in a later video. And then next up we have what I like to call the tier 3 expenses, and these are kind of just personal unwinding type things like subscription services that are monthly. For example, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, what have you. And then any sort of other memberships such as gym memberships or social clubs or whatever. Tier 3 is the easiest one to, kind of cut and scrimp on just because those are things that are very nice to have and are very good to unwind at the end of the day, but there are free alternatives for those sources of entertainment. I'm not talking about pirating or anything, I'm talking about simple entertainment. Like, instead of paying the $12 a month for Netflix, maybe just surf around YouTube for a bit and try to find some channels that you like. Speaking of which, feel free to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't yet. Just doing that general YouTube thing, it's a thing. Or in the case of gym memberships, I have definitely fallen victim to this a number of times. I have been a member of a gym probably 5 times throughout my life, and that's over the course of, I think the earliest I ever started going to a gym was 12, so that's about 18 years. And of all those times that I've been a member of a gym, I've been to a gym probably less than 1,000 times. So what I decided to do is I decided to cut gym memberships out of my budget and just start working out from home. I'll start doing some more
push-ups, sit-ups, and plenty of
jogs, and that's been working for me so far. Anyway, once you tabulate all those expenses, and I know that's not everything that goes into a budget, these are just the big rough, all the things that I can think of that typically pop up on a monthly basis. You add all those up, now compare that to your net income, and then you compare the difference, and you have what are essentially your net savings. Now, what do you do with the remainder of that money? There's a lot of things you could do. For example, setting up an emergency fund, putting it towards your retirement account, maybe setting some aside for a project that you're working on. Maybe you're trying to fix up a car or work on your home, or maybe get one of those things, maybe buy an engagement ring for that special someone. Maybe you're saving up for a vacation. Everybody needs one of those every now and again. I know I do. Maybe you want to put some aside for charitable giving, helping those in need. And then, of course, you'd want to set some aside plainly for entertainment, going out to movies, going out to meals with friends, going out to the bar, having a good time. Also, bonus point of those net savings. If you have that little bit extra left over at the end of the month, you've already put some away towards your emergency fund or your retirement account, projects, entertainment, etc., throw a little bit extra at your debts. Take those down. Because once you start taking down your debts, you get rid of your credit card debt, you get rid of your car loan, you get rid of your student loans. It starts snowballing and getting a little bit better for you. But I can already hear a few people asking, once you've set this up, but Lanny, I didn't come up with any net savings. I'm actually losing money every month. Well, that's when you go back to the budget and you ask yourself, where can I trim? what can I cut to make things a little bit easier? Now, I'll almost certainly make a bunch of videos on certain ways that you can cut a lot of fat out of your budget, but here are just a few examples. Let's go back to gas and travel real quick, for instance, because if you live close enough to work that you could conceivably bike or walk to it, just try to set some time aside to do that. That'll save you a lot of money at the pump at the end of the day. Or let's say you just bought a brand new car, hot off the line, and you're realizing the payment for this car is a bit more than you can handle. It's okay to admit that. So what do? You turn around and you sell it, and then try to get a cheaper option. Instead of going out and buying a fresh Jaguar straight off the line, go get a Honda Civic from a used lot for tens of thousands of dollars less. And I know it's kind of painful to turn around, give away a new toy that you've had, and try to get something that you're less happy about, but at the end of the day, the difference it will make in your budget and the difference that will make in your future will be massive. Because by doing that, it's going to allow you to put more money away and to try to build up more of a fund to make your life all the better for it. Another place where you can scrimp and save a lot is on food. I know I've been guilty of eating out far too much. Going out to restaurants, stopping by fast food instead of just making goddamn dinner for myself. And there are so many ways to make meals that could last you basically a week that cost the same as maybe 2 or 3 meals at Chipotle. And in the end, the meals that you make will probably also be better for you and will end up making you feel better in the long run as well. So, you know, tertiary benefits. Another easy one that I can think of is the cell phone plan. I've been shopping around recently trying to find a new cell phone plan for myself and Erica. As it stands, the one we have with Verizon is a bit more expensive than I would like. I've been looking around at a lot of different plans, including Google's new plan, which I'm intrigued by. I'm not entirely sold on it because I know next to nothing about it. If anybody out there is actually using it and can vouch for it, please hit me up in the comments below. But as it stands, that one in particular would save me probably close to $100 a month for the two of us, as opposed to my plan with Verizon. Unless Verizon would like to do something about it. Verizon, hit me up, you have my number. But yeah, always shopping around for a better deal? Definitely do that. As a tool to help with this process, in the description below, along with my Twitter links, Facebook link, Instagram links, where you can keep up on all the shit that I'm doing, I have linked a Google document which essentially you can print out and fill in. It's just a very basic bitch budget that I just went over. If you want to go more in-depth on budgeting, definitely look into things like, I use a program called You Need a Budget sometimes. There's always Quicken, I think Mint is another one that people use. There are lots of tools out there, some of which are free, that can really help you get a budget down. So yeah, this is budgeting basics. I hope it really opens some eyes out there, really gets some of you excited to start getting your financial destiny under control. And if you want to stay updated for more things to come, feel free to click that subscribe button, ring the bell, and smash like buttons. And in the comments below, let me know how you feel. Are you on track to being where you want to be financially? And did this help you? And if you have a friend or family member out there that you think might need this sort of help, feel free to link this video to them. I'd love to be able to spread this to whoever I can, to help whoever I can get their financial destiny under control. With all that, I hope you're all having a fantastic day and are as excited to conquer tomorrow as I am. I will see you guys next time, right here on this channel. And now there are things around me that you can click on to see and view. Some of them might be informational. Some of them might be random. And then there's probably a subscribe button around there in case you missed the one down there too. If you missed it, you know. I make lots of things.